Governments love to tell us they're protecting us, but sometimes they're not protecting us from enemies, they're protecting us from the truth. For decades, the CIA dosed civilians with LSD without their knowledge. The Pentagon spent millions chasing psychic spies, and the US military literally weaponized the weather during the Vietnam War. These aren't conspiracy theories, these are declassified facts. So if they kept those secrets for 20, 30, even 50 years, what are they hiding right now? Today, we're diving into the craziest technologies governments kept secret, from invisible planes to mind control experiments to weather weapons. Some of these projects were finally admitted. Others, well, let's just say the truth is still out there. Let's start with something that sounds like science fiction but became terrifyingly real: technology that makes multi-ton aircraft completely invisible to radar. Area 51. The base that didn't exist. For nearly 4 decades, the US government pretended Area 51 didn't exist. Literally. It wasn't on maps. Officials denied it. If you asked about Groom Lake in Nevada, you'd get blank stares and legal threats. But behind those denials, the CIA and Air Force were building some of the most advanced spy planes in history. The U-2 could fly at 70,000 feet, photographing Soviet missile sites. The A-12 Oxcart could hit Mach 3, that's over 2,200 miles per hour, and the SR-71 Blackbird, still one of the fastest planes ever built. And it first flew in the 1960s. Area 51 wasn't acknowledged until the late 20th century, after decades of secrecy, declassification battles, and a whole lot of UFO theories. And honestly, when you see what they were actually building, it's no wonder people thought they were alien spacecraft. The F-117 Nighthawk, the invisible jet. In 1981, Lockheed's Skunk Works, basically the government's secret workshop for impossible aircraft, built something revolutionary. The F-117 Nighthawk was the world's first operational stealth fighter. Its bizarre, faceted design wasn't just ugly on purpose. Those angular surfaces deflected radar waves, making it nearly invisible to enemy detection. The F-117 was declared operational in 1983. But the public, they didn't see a single photo until November 1988, 5 years later. That's 5 years of active combat missions, training flights, and development, completely hidden. Why the secrecy? Because if your enemies can't see you coming, you've already won. The F-117 saw action in Panama and the Gulf War, striking targets before anyone even knew it was there. The element of surprise isn't just tactical, it's terrifying. Sea Shadow, the stealth ship you never saw. While Lockheed was making planes invisible, the Navy had another idea. What if we made ships invisible too? Enter the Sea Shadow, an experimental stealth vessel built in 1984. This thing looked like something from a video game, angular, futuristic, and completely hidden inside a massive covered barge. For nearly a decade, it used a SWATH hull design, 2 submerged pontoons for stability, and radar-absorbent materials to minimize its signature. Sea Shadow wasn't revealed to the public until 1993. It never carried weapons. It was purely a testbed for naval stealth technology. But the fact that the US Navy could hide an entire ship for 9 years, that tells you everything about how deep these black budgets go. The Soviet flying warship. Now, the Soviets had their own secrets, and this one's wild. Imagine a massive aircraft, longer than a Boeing 747, armed with anti-ship missiles, flying just a few meters above the water at 340 miles per hour. That's the Lun-class Ekranoplan, also called the Caspian sea monster. It wasn't a plane, it wasn't a boat, it was a ground effect vehicle, a hybrid that used the cushion of air between its wings and the water to achieve insane speeds. The Soviets developed this beast in the 1970s and deployed it in the late 1980s. Western intelligence barely knew it existed until the 1990s. By then, the Cold War was ending, and the Lun was quietly decommissioned. But for years, this thing was out there, hidden on the Caspian Sea, ready to launch missiles at NATO ships. Surveillance and espionage. Stealth tech hides you from the enemy, but what if you want to see everything they're doing? That's where surveillance comes in, and governments have been watching and listening far longer than you think. ECHELON, Big Brother before the internet. In the 1970s, 5 countries, the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, built a global surveillance network called ECHELON. It intercepted satellite transmissions, phone calls, faxes, and emails across the entire planet. For decades, ECHELON was classified, denied, dismissed as paranoid fantasy. But in the early 2000s, European Parliament investigations confirmed it was real. The Five Eyes Alliance had been spying on everyone, allies, enemies, civilians, for 30 years. Think about that. The internet had Big Brother before the internet even existed. PRISM, when tech giants became spies. Fast forward to 2007, the NSA launched PRISM, a program that tapped directly into the servers of Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, and more, emails, chats, file transfers, search histories, all collected in secret under court orders. The public didn't know until 2013 when Edward Snowden leaked the documents. Suddenly, everyone realized their private messages weren't so private. Tech companies denied knowledge. The government claimed it was only used for terrorism, but the scope massive, invasive, and completely hidden for 6 years. Tempora, the UK's internet vacuum. While the NSA was reading your emails, the UK's GCHQ was doing something even more ambitious. They were downloading the entire internet. Tempora, revealed in the same 2013 Snowden leaks, involved tapping undersea fiber optic cables, the backbone of global internet traffic. GCHQ, with help from British Telecoms and the NSA, was capturing and storing vast amounts of data. Not just metadata, actual content. It's the difference between knowing you called someone and recording the entire conversation. And it was all classified, hidden behind legal loopholes and secret partnerships with telecom companies. Mind control and psychic experiments. Now we're getting into territory that sounds absolutely insane, but stick with me because this is all documented. MKULTRA, government-sponsored acid trips. From 1953 to 1973, the CIA ran a program called MKULTRA. Its goal? Mind control, interrogation techniques, chemical warfare, and a whole lot of LSD. The CIA dosed civilians, prisoners, and even its own agents, often without their knowledge or consent. They experimented with hypnosis, electroshock therapy, sensory deprivation, and psychedelics, trying to find ways to break the human mind. In 1973, when the program was exposed, the CIA director ordered most of the documents destroyed. What we know comes from the scraps that survived and congressional hearings in 1975. The public was outraged, but by then the damage was done. The government was basically microdosing people decades before it was a wellness trend, except, without consent and with torture. Stargate project, the CIA's psychic spies. Okay, this one's almost too weird to believe, but it's real. From 1978 to 1995, the US Army, DIA, and CIA funded the Stargate project, a program dedicated to remote viewing. The idea: train psychics to spy on enemies by seeing distant locations with their minds. They funded experiments at Stanford Research Institute. They built entire units of psychic soldiers, and they kept it classified for nearly 20 years. In 1995, the CIA finally reviewed the program and concluded it produced no actionable intelligence. Translation: it didn't work, but the fact that the government spent millions trying to create Jedi spies, that's the Cold War in a nutshell. Soviet psychotronic research, and the US wasn't alone. During the Cold War, rumors swirled that the Soviets were researching psychotronic weapons devices that could control minds or transmit thoughts. US intelligence was so concerned, they launched their own psychic programs just to keep up. How much of this was real? Hard to say. Most Soviet research remains classified or lost, but both superpowers were so paranoid they were literally trying to outthink each other psychically. Weather and environmental control. Here's where things get genuinely disturbing. What if I told you the US military weaponized rain? Not in some future dystopia. In Vietnam, Operation Popeye, weaponizing the monsoon. From 1967 to 1972, the US Air Force ran Operation Popeye, a cloud seeding program designed to extend the monsoon season over North Vietnam and Laos. They dropped silver iodide flares from planes, triggering rainfall to flood enemy supply routes and bog down troop movements. It worked, but it was kept secret because weaponizing weather crossed a major ethical line. When the operation leaked in the 1970s via the Pentagon papers, it sparked international backlash. Weather warfare was eventually banned under the Environmental Modification Convention in 1977. But here's the thing, banning it didn't make the technology disappear. HAARP, the conspiracy magnet. In 1993, the US military built HAARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program in Alaska. Officially, it studied the ionosphere, radio waves, and atmospheric physics. A giant field of antennas beaming energy into the sky. Conspiracy theorists saw something else. Weather control, earthquake weapons, even mind manipulation. Scientists insist HAARP's capabilities don't match these claims. But because it was military-run and semi-secret for years, the myths exploded. In 2015, HAARP was transferred to university control. It's now open to researchers, but the damage was done. When governments run secretive programs, people fill in the blanks, and sometimes those blanks are scarier than the truth. China's sky clearing operations. Today, China runs the world's largest weather modification program. They openly use cloud-seeding rockets and aircraft for agriculture, drought relief, and, here's the kicker, propaganda events. In July 2021, ahead of the Chinese Communist Party's centenary celebration, Beijing launched a massive cloud-seeding operation to ensure clear skies over Tiananmen Square. Researchers confirmed they fired silver iodide rockets for 2 hours, dispersing rain clouds right before the ceremony. China plans to expand this program to cover millions of square kilometers by 2025. Weather control isn't science fiction anymore, it's state policy. And while China's open about it domestically, the full capabilities still state secrets. UFOs and exotic tech. Let's end with the big question, aliens, or more accurately, UFOs, because it turns out the government was chasing them. AATIP, the Pentagon's X-Files. In 2017, the New York Times dropped a bombshell. The Pentagon had secretly funded a UFO research program from 2007 to 2012 called AATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Budget, $22 million a year. Mission, investigate unidentified aerial phenomena, military encounters with objects that defied physics, no sound instant acceleration, movements that would kill a human pilot. The program was black budget, kept from Congress and the public. When it leaked, the Pentagon confirmed it existed, but claimed it ended in 2012. Whistleblowers said it continued under different names. The Navy later released videos. The Tic-Tac encounter, objects moving in ways our technology can't explain. Are they aliens? Advanced drones? Something else? We don't know, but the government was quietly investigating for years. Die Glocke, the Nazi time machine? Maybe not. Finally, let's talk about a myth. During World War II, rumors spread of a secret Nazi weapon called Die Glocke, the bell. Supposedly, it was an anti-gravity device or a time machine, depends who you ask. Here's the truth. There's no documentary evidence it existed, no blueprints, no Nazi records. Popular mechanics and historians have debunked it as post-war science fiction. But here's why it matters. Nazi Germany did develop secret weapons, the V-2 rocket, jet fighters, advanced submarines. After the war, the US and Soviets seized these projects under Operation Paperclip, keeping much of it classified for decades. So while Die Glocke is fiction, the mystique around secret Nazi tech, that comes from real classified research. And that's how myths are born, when real secrets create space for imagined ones. So there you have it. Invisible planes, global surveillance networks, government-sponsored acid trips, psychic spies, weather weapons, UFO investigations. These aren't theories, they're history. Declassified, documented, admitted. And here's the scariest part. If this is what they've admitted to, imagine what's still locked away right now. Maybe the real question isn't what they've built, it's what they're building next. Which secret shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments. And remember, question everything. Stay curious, stay skeptical.